Okay, so get this. 3 Mile Island, right?
Mm.
Yeah, the name that still kind of makes you like shudder when you think about nuclear power.
Yeah.
Well, it's back.
It's back.
Back in the headlines. And this is not your everyday energy story.
No, not at all. And welcome, everyone. It's really fascinating to see this kind of, I don't know, collision of history and the future in a way that I think for a lot of folks is exciting. For others, maybe a little bit unnerving.
Unnerving is putting it mildly. I mean, we're talking about the same place where the U.S. had its, like, most serious nuclear accident.
Right. And that's the key thing to remember here. It's Unit 1 that's being talked about being brought back online, not Unit 2, which was the one that had the partial meltdown back in 1979.
Right, okay.
So,
Unit 1 was actually fine until they shut it down in 2019. But to bring it back online now, especially with all the baggage that comes with that name 3 Mile Island, it just seems kind of crazy. Why even go there?
well, it really comes down to energy. And,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that metaphorically. Think about what we've been seeing, just this huge explosion in artificial intelligence, which requires massive amounts of power. I mean, just massive amounts of power to run all of these complex algorithms. And it's not just any power. It has to be constant, 24/7.
Yeah.
That's where we start talking about things like base load power, which is extremely important. Renewables, right? Your solar, your wind, these are fantastic, don't get me wrong. But they're what we call intermittent. The sun goes down, the wind, it dies down. You can't have your AI system taking a nap just because, Mother Nature decided to.
So you're saying nuclear is like the Energizer Bunny of the power grid. It keeps going and going and going.
Essentially, yes. And that reliability, that's what these tech giants, they need that to fuel what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which leads us to, of course, Microsoft, right? They're not just dipping their toes into this whole nuclear-powered data center concept. They're doing a cannonball into the pool. This partnership with Constellation Energy, the company that owns 3 Mile Island now, it's a big deal.
And their stock price has, like I read in CNBC, that their stock price has more than doubled just this year.
It's incredible.
So investors are definitely seeing dollar signs.
Absolutely.
But Microsoft's not the only one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the only ones turning to nuclear.
No. In fact, CNBC also mentioned that Amazon, Oracle, they're all sniffing around this nuclear option for their data centers as well. This isn't just like a one-off thing. This could be a trend. And that's a really interesting thing to think about because now you have these massive companies and they're becoming major players in the energy market, which gives them a lot of power in terms of shaping energy policy.
Okay, so we've got this, like, insatiable appetite for energy, and we need a reliable power source, and these tech giants like Microsoft are stepping up.
Yeah.
But this all depends on this power plant that, let's be honest, is like synonymous with nuclear disaster. How do you even start to make that happen?
Wait, that's where it gets really, really interesting.
It's almost like they're trying to, I don't know, convince us that Frankenstein's monster is like a cute little puppy now.
Yeah.
They even renamed it, didn't they?
They did. They did.
It's not 3 Mile Island anymore.
Nope. Crane Clean Energy Center. At least that's what they're calling it now.
Crane Clean Energy Center.
According to one of the articles, yeah.
It's like, okay, can you really just put a new name on something like that and expect everyone to just forget?
Well,
I mean, come on. It's 3 Mile Island. People are like Chernobyl, Fukushima. When you say those names.
they leave a mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that leads us to kind of like the elephant in the room, which is, we're talking about nuclear power. And I said earlier, right, it's not black and white.
Right.
It might be a great source of carbon-free energy, but it does come with its own set of headaches.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest ones is waste disposal.
Right.
The United States still does not have a permanent repository for high-level radioactive waste.
Yeah, the CNN article mentioned that.
Right.
But they didn't really get into it. Like, where does it go? Are they just going to pile it up behind this rebranded facility?
Well, that's a great question. That's the billion-dollar question. And it's something that Constellation Energy has been pretty quiet about, which is interesting. They're going to have to address that because it's a major concern for regulators, for the public. It's not just about getting the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, to sign off on this, which, by the way, that's a whole other process.
Yeah.
A lot of hoops to jump through. But then they also have to convince the community, the people who live around there, that this is safe, that this isn't going to come back to haunt them.
Right. Right. So they're trying to walk this tightrope of, hey, investors, this is going to be profitable, clean energy. But then on the other hand, public, don't worry, we've learned from the past.
Right.
I don't know.
It's a tough sell.
It feels like a tough sell. And then, you're talking about big tech, and they're partnering with nuclear power. I mean, is that good? Is it bad?
Well, that's the thing. It's not, you can't put it in a box like that, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you can argue, sure, it's great. You're pushing for a cleaner energy source, one that can keep up with all our tech demands, but it's also putting a ton of power into the hands of these companies.
Yeah, and like you were saying, they could like start dictating energy policy because they're the big consumers. What does that mean for like all the progress with solar, wind, all that?
Yeah.
Are we going to see that slow down because nuclear is back on the table?
Well, that's what's so complex about this. Ideally, right, we want this diverse energy mix. We need renewables. We need these baseload sources like nuclear.
Right.
But how this all plays out, I mean, will it lead to more innovation in both areas, or is this a power shift? You know what I mean? It's something to, I think, pay close attention to.
Okay, so we've got this controversial power plant, like coming back from the dead, this whole rebranding thing. We still haven't figured out the waste problem. And oh yeah, big tech might become like the new energy giants.
Right.
I mean, what are we supposed to make of this?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
So we're like heading towards a future where our iPhones are running on the same juice as like submarines and spaceships? I don't know. It's kind of cool. Kind of creepy.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, what this really points to is just how much technology and energy are like converging right now.
Yeah.
And that's really the takeaway I hope folks are getting from this deep dive we've been doing. This isn't just some isolated thing about one power plant. It's like this microcosm of this much bigger conversation about energy that's happening everywhere. Like, we're trying to get to this cleaner energy future, but it's messy. It's not simple.
Yeah.
There are compromises, there are risks, and there's a lot we just don't know.
It's like we're at one of those like choose your own adventure books, and there are all these different paths, right? You've got renewables, you've got nuclear, who knows, maybe something we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah.
And they've all got their pros and cons.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is that there's not always like a clear right answer.
Yeah.
Take this whole 3 Mile Island rebranding. Some people, they see that and it's just cynical, right? It's PR. They're trying to, make us forget. Others, maybe they see it as, hey, they're trying to move on, Nuclear can be safe. It can be responsible.
Just because they slapped a new name on it, like that doesn't mean that all those big questions about safety and the waste, poof, they're gone, right?
Usually.
Like those are real issues.
They are, and that's where you come in, right? The listener. You've heard everything, right? What we've talked about, the good, the bad. What do you think? Do you think there's a place for nuclear in a clean energy future? Can we learn from our mistakes, do it better this time, or is it's just not worth the risk?
And it's not like we can just sit back and be like, oh, I'm just going to let everybody else figure this out. These decisions, they affect all of us.
They do, and that's why you have to, stay informed. Ask the hard questions and make your voice heard, because this isn't some, theoretical discussion in a lab somewhere. This is happening right now. This is your community.
Yeah.
This is the government. This is like dinner table conversations.
So to leave you with something to really chew on, I mean, could this be the start of something much bigger? Could we see these tech giants like Microsoft, with all their money, all their power, they become like the big players in the energy world? Like they're not just powering our phones, they're powering like everything.
It's a really interesting question. And only time will tell, and it really depends on what we do, what we choose today. But the story of energy, of the future of energy, it's being written right now. And we're all a part of it.
And that is a wrap on another deep dive. Keep those brains buzzing out there. We'll catch you next time.